All right, kia ora everybody. Welcome back to Kōrero with Creators. Today we have another very exciting guest who I would also consider to be one of the living legends in the world of moko. Gordon Toy, kia ora brother. Thank you for coming in.
Tēnā koe, tēnā koutou I hakorongo mai ki ngā kōrero. Ngā mihi.
I'm always being asked about moko, and I try to tell people that the answers lie with the very people who upkeep this taonga, you guys, the moko artists. So I wanted to give my platform to moko artists to hopefully give some clarity regarding this tradition and to particularly focus on how they're affected by the age of social media and online spaces. So I really want the audience to see the variation in ideologies, as I've interviewed multiple moko artists now. So absolutely just be as truthful and honest as you can. But firstly, just introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are.
Tēnā koutou katoa ko Gordon Toy ahau. He uri o Mapuhi, hoki anga whakapau karakia te awa tapu. I grew up in Tāmaki Makaurau in the 70s and I spent most of my time in Auckland and around Ōtarai and Māngere. And over those years, sort of, had a lot of people come into my life that helped steer the direction to which I currently hold. Saved my life, some of those fellas. But currently I'm living here in Te Waipounamu and Te Tauihu o Te Waka in a little place called Mapua in the South Island.
Yeah, awesome. And so firstly, I would love to hear your definition or interpretation of moko. You know, as a moko artist, what does it mean to you?
Yeah. Oh, that's that nui te pātai hoa. You know, e oku nei whakaro I pāna ki tō pātai. Yeah, I think the question should be, what doesn't the moko mean? I mean, it means you know, it's. I was thinking about it this morning. You know, like what is moko? To me, moko is a first and foremost he taonga tēnā. It's a gift left behind by our tupuna, and secondly, I think moko is a rongoa. It's a way that we can, you know, learn about ourselves. About our strengths, our weaknesses, our fears, our loves, our hates. It's a way that we can organize our brain to think a certain way. Moko links us to our ancestors, links us to our lands, our tribal lands. Yeah, I mean...
It is a big one. It is a big one. What got you started? You know, like I said, you're one of the legends of the game, sort of alive today. How did that come about for you?
Well, you know, to be called a legend, you know, I mean, that's also, you know, I mean, yeah, you know, when this whole kind of kaupapa of moko started back in the early 90s, and when I say started, what I mean by that, is that there was a cultural renaissance happening, and it started, you know, way back in the 70s, I believe. That's when it started its run, and that was through people like, you know, my auntie Whina Cooper and many others that had just had enough of being pushed aside culturally, and that sort of, you know, started a whole snowball effect of Māori just saying, you know, like, no, fuck this, you know, this is not good enough. And you know, there's historically a whole lot of things that have happened in between then and now and currently, politically, that, you know, remind us of just like, holy moly, man, like, you know, if we look at each other and we unite as a people, we can actually kind of have a huge effect on how society looks upon us, but
Absolutely.
also more importantly, how we look at each other. And moko is a celebration of that. And in the early 90s, there were a bunch of us that were around in the right time in the right place. And we were lucky enough to be a part of that renaissance. And many of those guys and girls are still currently working in the field of moko. And even more so, those of us are now dads and mums, and we've got kids that are involved in it as well. So, it's really taken off, and it's had a powerful effect, not just on us as a people, but on the world, as you know.
Yep. You've been doing it for a long time, and it obviously means that you're pretty passionate, about Māoridom, about moko, about these traditions. As someone who's been doing it for so long, what is your favorite thing about doing moko for people? You mentioned a bit earlier that it's, it's a rongoa, can be healing for people, there's so many amazing aspects to this practice. What's your favorite thing about doing it?
Just, realizing that you can help somebody, that's, you look at other professions like doctors and surgeons and lawyers and people who help other people, ministers, right across the board. You can have actually a real powerful effect on how someone sees their life and where they're going with that, and sometimes you can get into that rhythm of just kind of thinking, wow, it's just another moko, it's another day, and here we go, make a buck. But no, you actually drop some real bombs, and that has a huge effect, regardless of the size of the moko, where the moko is on the body. Doesn't really matter. It's how you've made that person feel, and in that there's this exchange where you grow too. You're learning too. Like, I'd be the first one to say, their title of a legend or tohunga or whatever. I still feel like the tauira aho.
Right.
Like I'm growing with every client that comes in, into my studio. I grow just a little bit more. It makes me more aware of who I am as a person and what I, what I have to give. Like I think about my own teachings, with regards to starting carving when I was at high school under the tutorship of Heinare Mahanga, and then going on to Te Puia. I mean, all these gifts were given, and they were ignited by the people that I was around it. And at the time, my teachers and my peers and all that's had a huge effect on me. And then you have this art form that starts to also become relit, and you see the effect on our people, young, old, poor, rich. It's right across the board. People who are matato, people who don't even know their waka. It has profound effect, and the more and more I dig into it, the more and more it teaches me. The more and more I learn about it, the more and more I can give to our people.
Awesome. Yeah, love that. That's an awesome answer. So I think it's probably safe to say, at least in my experience, and I follow and am aware of a lot of moko artists out there, that I'm pretty sure you have the biggest social media following of moko artists that use social media, at least that I've seen. And of course, this whole Kōrero is about moko and how it's affected by social media. What is your relationship with social media?
I don't even know why it's that big. I honestly don't. I for the life of me, I can't figure it out. My daughter, who's also a tā moko artist, Wairingi, she got me into Instagram.
Right.
And it was kind of a funny transition, that whole thing, because, before Instagram, people still had to ring up, and, of course there was emails and stuff like that, but I've never really been computer literate or even that good with phones. I mean, I think I'm up to my 50th phone because I lose them, break them, and I'm terrible at messaging. I didn't even know how to get onto this meeting. I was pushing buttons,
Right.
Fearful that I couldn't get connected. So social media for me, when it came along, I still didn't, for years, I just didn't understand it. I just thought, put the thing on, and let it do its thing. And then, I started realizing that more and more people were utilizing that tool, and I started thinking to myself, well, fucking hell, this is a great way I can just be me, and I don't feel the pressures of having to be anyone else that anyone else thinks I should be. And I could just speak my mind if I needed to do that, or I could also use it to show the power of the work, and that, maybe I could reach other audience other than our own, and educate them about, like, what is moko and what is not moko, and te mea. So I really started like getting into it on that level to really kind of educate people, and it's also become a great way to educate and showcase the art and the culture, but it's also become my shop front. And I don't have to rely on galleries or a middleman to help move my art. And now, I feel like I have my own power, my own motuhake, my own rangatiratanga, and I don't have to use a middleman to, sell my work. I can sell it online. So in that way, I feel like it's a really great tool for artists, any artist.
Yep.
Yeah, and like I'll put up a particular post, and it will, like, the rate, all the ratings and everything goes ballistic, and the comments and stuff like that. And I think for the comments and all that sort of stuff, as much as I appreciate people taking the time to leave a comment, at the same time, that's not what I'm doing it for. I couldn't give a fucking rat's ass about what people think.
Right.
What I do give a rat's ass about is when you're sitting in front of me and we're having a real exchange of why and how, and answering all those questions, and there may be another a Māori out there who sees my post and think, I like the way that guy works. I'm going to reach out to him. There'll be a lot of Māori out there that will look at my post and think, what a fucking blow ass. And that's all cool too. I mean, like, I doubt if I'll ever meet them kanohi ki te kanohi. And if I ever did, oh well, haramai.
Yeah.
Let's go. And let's get down into it. And but it never ever happens,
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish a motherfucker would.
Yeah.
Because I've had my fair share of criticism over the years and stuff like that, and I would not say that it doesn't hurt.
Right.
It does, because even though people kind of look at us like we're legends and all this sort of carry on, we're still human. And when people say negative things about you and make up stories about you and things like that, it does hurt. But I've had a few things happen in my own personal life over the years, and I've always tried to kind of like gain strength from it as well. So, like, negativity can be just as useful as positivity.
Absolutely.
And you just need to be able to navigate through all those different things if you're going to be successful in anything that you do, and be clear about what matters. And half the people that come on, and leave negative comments, they're not even worth the time of day. You know what I mean? They're just shit kickers. And, I'd be the first one to call them out, if I knew who the hell, if I could get my hands on them, I would call them out, but nah, And momo te time. I've got better things to do than to worry about what other people think what I'm about and who I really am. So long as my family know, my children know who their papa, what their papa is about, that's all that matters.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
I agree.
And if the DMs stop, well, then I know that I'm probably heading down the wrong road.
Right.
If people are still looking for me and coming to me for mahi, then that reaffirms that I might not be on the right track that everybody else wants me to be on, but I'm definitely on a motherfucking track.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I really like what you said about, social media's ability to take our education and your teachings, beyond Māori. Like for me personally, the majority of my following is made up of non-Māori, and the power that I see in that is having other people who aren't Māori be proud and excited to learn about Māori. And then, that reflects back on our own people and gives our own people something to look forward to. There's so many of our people out there who have that mamai about from colonization and things like that feel sort of have a hard time accepting their Māoriness. And so it's awesome to see it pushed forward out there into the world, which leads me to my next question. In recent sort of time on social media, we've seen this huge sort of exposure and boom of things Māori, particularly things moko online. As a moko artist, if you've noticed this sort of increase in the trend, how do you feel about this exposure and popularization of things Māori, particularly moko right now online?
I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
I was in it, boots and all, man. I worked in the film industry. I've worked in, various other forms of media. I did some, some contract work designing clothes for a swimwear outfit, and just trying to kind of breach the bridge and get our stuff out there, get people kind of aware. I'm a part of it. I love it. So long as we're in charge, so long as your the companies that seek those types of mahi, that they seek out the right people, and they're not always going to get it right, and they haven't for years. But every now and again, people will ask you to do those sorts of things, and there's been a couple of things that I've done where I thought this is going to get some backlash,
right?
And in the background, I've done my own rangahau. So if I have a feeling of doubt about a project, I will go and seek guidance from those people that I respect. And sometimes, when my grandmother was alive, I used to use her a lot in terms of like, her guidance and making sure that, like, what about this? What about that? And navigating through that, and she would help. And for other projects, I've gone to seek out kind of like, friends within my network that I respect. I'm not going to drop any names because usually they're pretty high profile, and that I'll leave it at that. But people that I really, really respect, their opinions matter, and ultimately I will make my choice based on that. And out of all the things that I've done with regards to, things outside our culture, like movies and swim things and all that sort of stuff, all the advice has been do it, do it. And every time that we have embarked on a project like that, it's had huge repercussions in terms of positivity and the way that Māori see themselves on a big screen or in a swimsuit or te mea, all those other things. And I think positive things, so long as we as artists are in control of how those designs are used. Because you can give up a design, give it to a company, and they'll manipulate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see it time and time again.
Time and time again. So the artists need to be strong. The artists need to be educated in themselves in terms, and if you don't know, find out. Ask somebody. Get some advice, whether it's a legal advice about contract work or go to talk to your nanny. But the nannies, they know everything. It doesn't matter what happens. You have a relationship problem, your dog's sick or anything like that. Our nannies, they know. And you sit with them, and even our koroas, you sit with those fellas, and there's nothing that you haven't experienced in life that they haven't experienced.
Absolutely.
Often their advice is the best advice.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. Now, one of the things that's come up, and I've noticed this question is now showing up even more now that this series is kind of, underway, I suppose. And that's that a lot of people are surprised that all so far but one of the moko artists that I have interviewed don't actually have moko kanohi, or facial moko for those of you listening in, themselves. So it might be a personal question, so you're more than welcome to not answer. But as a moko artist, why do you yourself not have moko kanohi yet?
Well, I was born in the 60s, and so I was part of that generation that was all, we were bred for simulation. Our generation, the 60s babies, bred for simulation. Look at our names: Gordon, Bob, Mary, all Pākehā names. And the whole cultural renaissance, it didn't happen overnight. It was, there's a lot of things that, when I was growing up, I heard about moko and what moko kanohi meant. And I guess personally, I can't answer for anybody else, but I have this huge respect for it, and even more now that I'm doing it.
Right.
It is the taumata. It is the creme of the creme. I don't know if I said that right. To me, in my mind, I need to have the reo. I need to make sure that my my mental health is secure. To carry that thing, because and that's the generational kind of thing that I've grown up with, is like only that's only for the chiefs.
Right.
And even though I know that's a colonialistic point of view, and I know that, it's embedded in me, and and that's okay. That's okay. One day, maybe, you never know. I never say no. Always leave the door open on that one. I'm already fucking ugly enough without it. I'm scary enough without it. And but then again, I just never say no. But I have to be tika with it, and I think if I'm doing it for any other reason than being pono about who I am, and I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. And I would say that to anyone that I'm tattooing. If you're doing this because you're purely doing it because you want to look cool, or you want to, you have ulterior motives about wanting to wear moko, now I would advise you to take time to think about it, because once you mark that skin, that's it. And I take my hat off to people like yourself, young Māori, the kohanga age, the generation who are taking on moko kanohi at a very, very young age. Kapai, kia kaha, karawhiua, get into it, because they can carry it, and they understand, or they should understand, the responsibilities that come with wearing moko kanohi. And, perhaps we're not going to get that right too, but we have to go through this process, and, whatever falls on the table, we have to, if there's a mess, then we have to clean it up. But we won't know unless we do it. And this is a kōrero that goes right back to the 90s and our wānanga that we used to talk about, like, oh, what if, shit, are we the right ones to do it, and all that sort of stuff. And we were lucky that we all had one another to sort of lean on when we got fired some of these questions that were like questioning, what the hell are you guys doing?
Right.
You felt safe because there were those amongst us that could answer those questions. I was still very naive and young about moko, even though I come from a carving background. I didn't have the answers, I didn't know. I just knew that I wanted to moko, and it felt good. And I like the way that it made other people feel about themselves, you know, because again, coming through that generational colonization simulation kind of thing, in the 70s, it wasn't cool to be Māori. In fact, the way that you pronounce Māori was Maori. You know, and a lot of us probably, you know, we're too whakamā to talk about it, but that's the fucking truth, you know. I can remember one of my Māori teachers at school saying when I was getting into carving, like, that shit ain't going to get you too far, boy.
Right.
That's not his fault. But that was the perspective back then, and that's the truth, you know. You'll never have a kaioko say that these days, because we know the value of our culture and we appreciate the value of our culture. But man, that's got some fucking history behind it, you know, and it's young.
Yeah.
It's not old, it's young.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's important about sharing that kōrero there is because, you know, social media can sometimes paint, you know, we see moko videos and young people, like you said, myself, getting moko left, right, and center, and it looks all really positive and it's, you know, thriving, which, to be fair, it's doing pretty good. But I think it then makes people not realize, you know, it's not that long ago that people were getting none at all. You know, it's pretty recent in the revival period. You know, like you said, the Renaissance really was happening in the 90s and all that. And so there are still plenty of people alive like yourself that, even though you know all those things, like you said, that you don't have to do this, but it's so difficult to break out of those you know, mindsets, and that's the reality of what that colonial damage does over generations and generations of oppression, I suppose. So I think it's really important that kōrero is shared, which is why I asked that question. But to wrap up this section, do you think then more Māori should have moko?
I think if it's in your heart and you're pono about the kaupapa of why you want it, do it. If there's doubt, wānanga. Go and talk to your people. You don't need permission to get moko, but you do need to center your kaupapa, your reasoning behind why one does that, you know? And moko is never a one-off thing. It grows. It evolves. You know, it symbolizes all the things that we are a part of, like te tai ao, you know, the natural forces of our lands, our mountains, our rivers, you know, it's part of our DNA. So moko, even though you think, well, I'm just going to get me an armband, no, that's really just the seed that's been planted. It will grow. Something will happen in your life. Maybe a year later, maybe 6 months, maybe 10 years. But you'll get that feeling again where you want to mark, and it was seeded the first time that needle or that gun or the bone hits your skin. It will open you up sometime in the future. So if you start with moko, make sure your kaupapa is tika. Make sure that your nākau is in the right place. Make sure that your hiningaro is centered, pono, and then go for it.
Yeah, awesome. So I wanted a portion of these episodes to be dedicated to the questions that I'm always being asked constantly by my viewers, my followers, and hopefully over the course of the series, they'll be able to see how much or how little variation there can be in the answers across moko artists. And hopefully the goal of this section is to break down some of the misunderstandings or miseducations surrounding moko. Your answers can be as simple as yes or no, or as in depth as you want. But the one caveat, I suppose, to help you so that you don't have to preface every question with "this is just my opinion." I sort of approach the questions as if it was a client asking you these questions, maybe for clarification. Some of these questions, they might seem a little bit silly, but I get asked the whole range, and I get them asked constantly. So we'll start off with the first one, which is normally the main one. Is moko only for Māori?
No, I can't agree with that. I've mokoed half of Holland, so clearly I'm not in agreement that moko is only for Māori. I had my reasons why I wanted to do that as an artist. I think it's something that we can share, but we also as artists, not as a iwi, but as artists, that we need to navigate. It's up to us.
Yeah, absolutely. As the practitioners themselves, you know, especially in modern times, I suppose, where that this is an assumption, but that the upholding of the practice is more singular in nature. I mean, across artists and the generations of artists that have taught you, but you know, less of a outside of the world of artists. I'm not sure how much is being upkept by non-artists. And in saying that too, then the sort of part two to this question normally surrounds the term kirituhi then, because, you know, lots of people kind of jump back and forth between, is it moko or is it kirituhi? Do you have a preference for either? Do you use it, kirituhi, at all as a term?
I don't use kirituhi at all.
Right.
I know where my moko comes from, and it ain't in kirituhi. I respect those who wānanga that particular kupu and why it came up. I understand, and I support that 100%. But I personally, I know where my moko comes from. I have a deep, seated passion about what I do, and I don't feel I need to water it down for anybody.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's awesome. Now, I'm always getting messages as well from Māori who like to use the phrase part Māori, you know, this idea of only being a fraction of a Māori because you've got 20% Māori, or I'm only a quarter Māori, or these sorts of phrasings. And normally what follows that statement is, are they then entitled to things like moko? So if someone is only part Māori, are they allowed to get moko?
Of course they are. Of course they are, man. You know, like, that, I don't know where the fuck that comes from, and it pisses me off that, you know, like, Māori will also, like, you know, question the fact that, oh, well, how much Māori has that fella got? Who the hell cares, man? You know, who the hell cares? If he's got Māori blood or she's got Māori blood, that's enough. The moko is not the be all and the end all. It's merely a guide. It's merely a seed to educate, to learn. It's not the be all and end all.
Yes,
moko is not that. You know, and people put that perspective on moko that, you know,
yeah, they do.
Oh, you know, and they look for the big answers. Bullshit. Bullshit. You know, moko is a tool. And like any tool, you need to learn how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, couldn't agree more. And in that as well, I see lots of people sort of go, well, my grandmother's dead or my grandpa's passed away, you know, or maybe I'm not connected to my whānau, but I've heard this idea that to receive moko, you have to have permission from your elders. Is that real? Do you have to have permission from your elders in order to be bestowed moko?
Well, I think there was a period, you know, in the early days, and I would be the first to kind of agree with, like, yeah, man, like, you know, if you're young, I mean, go and seek advice from your parents, from your whānau, you know, if, you know, but I think, you know, times have changed. Like, you know, there's a whole new breed, a generation of rangatahi that are like little Jedi tohungas, you know? And so their consciousness and their awareness is so much greater than, say, my generation in terms of their Māori-ness. So I would say no, man. Like, they have already got that answer, you know, and we should wrap around them and support them instead of questioning their authority or their mana about whether or not they're ready or not. That's not our role. Our role is to help guide them. Like, here is something that is from our tupuna. Here are, you know, here in these designs are ways that we can help complement the existing ahua of a person. They can use it. It's not just an aesthetic. It's not just something to look cool. It's not just something to, you know, to show off. It's actually something that we can use that really, really gives us a superpower. And, you know, you know, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. That's a great answer. That's the first time I've sort of heard it sort of, you know, broken down like that. But you mentioned, though, you know, young people getting it done. And I think one of the things that people quite often, at least in my context, pull me up on is my age. You know, oh, surely you can't be old enough to have earned that, or, you know, these kinds of ideas that we get. But in reality, how old do you have to be to receive moko, and to even more specifically moko kanohi, because that's normally where those comments are directed?
You know, it's like kanohi, if they're young, you know, in my opinion, if a young rangatahi comes to me for kanohi or pūhoro, I definitely need, you know, that to me is not an individual choice. You know, when I'm talking young, I'm talking teenage kind of age. You know, that for me requires you know, acknowledgement from their parents. You know, it's not that I'm questioning their mana. I'm just making sure that, especially if I don't know them, I'm just making sure that I'm covering myself as an artist. That I'm, you know, because, you know, we get all types of people come through our doors, and if we don't protect ourselves as artists, then that leaves the door open for, you know, maybe something negative coming down our way. So, you know, if they're in their 20s and, you know, during that consultation period, I can get a handle on them, and that they've got their shit together, and then we're away. But in the teens, I would require at least their parents, at the very least, that they sanction and tautoko their child to go under that process.
Yeah, awesome.
Very rare.
Yeah. Cool. And so you mentioned a little bit, you know, one of your own personal hurdles maybe, or requirements for your own journey with moko kanohi was the reo. And that's one of the questions that I get all the time, you know, particularly for moko kanohi, you know, can you get moko kanohi if you are not fluent in te reo Māori? Obviously it's a personal thing for you, but do you then carry that forward to clients?
I kind of think that answer lays again with the artist, that the artist should not only be willing to do the moko, but also educate the in that consultation period, that wānanga period, with that particular person, about all the pros and cons of the responsibility that comes with wearing a facial moko or pūhoro. The moko and the pūhoro are the two big pieces that you know, in my opinion, will change your life. And in that, we need to help and navigate our people through that process. So it's not just about the moko, it's a very holistic approach that we take in order for that person to be in the right frame of mind to first undergo that process, which for kanohi is, you know, maybe 3-4 hours. Pūhoro, 5, 6, 7 days, depending on the size of the beast. So, you know, these are very serious operations. And I call it operation because it is. An armband or an arm sleeve will take half the day. It doesn't get you through that. It doesn't get you through that that wānanga of mamai, of pain that brings with getting your facial markings done. And even a lot of the facial markings that you'll see around Aotearoa today usually are just the first stages of a full face kanohi, which is a lot easier to take than the full face. When it comes to kauai, our women right through have carried their kaupapa right through, like they never stopped. In fact, when it did get to the point where the actual process of tattooing had literally ceased, those nannies that wore the last markings of those tohunga that put those markings on them decided, well, fuck that. We'll live into our hundreds until somebody, you know, is ballsy enough to pick it up again. And you know, thankfully we had people like Michael King who photographed, interviewed, and so that we can hear their voices, we can research their kōreros and put that into our work and you know, reignite those ahika you know, and put us into the right, you know, the right frame of thinking when we're doing this type of mahi, instead of just like, yeah, I'm a cool artist and I'm gonna, I've done like, you know, fucking 20 kanohi or whatever.
Right.
No, it's more than that. In fact, you know, you got fellas like Tu who prominently do and have done a lot of our rangatira around the motu done their kanohi. You know, people like that have taken time out to research. They've dedicated their lives to, you know, ensuring that the markings that they leave behind in our people's skin is going to benefit them. You know, it's going to benefit that individual, specifically that individual. And if that individual is empowered by undergoing that process, then that individual, without having to say a word, will inspire somebody else.
Absolutely.
Just by having that on their face and people, you know, seeing it. They don't even have to say a word. The work will do the talking for you.
You know, as someone with such a large following, I'm sure it means that you have a lot of people who are probably pretty interested, you know, in getting mahi done by you. But one of the things that I see holds a lot of Māori back is this idea that your moko artist also must be from your iwi. And so how do you feel about that? You know, does your moko artist have to be someone that's also from your iwi?
Nah, I have people come from all over the motu. Even now Mozzie Cuzzies over in Aotearoa.
Yep.
They chime in there and come back here to little old Mapua in the South Island and get their work done. But I will say this, you know, like I'm staunchly proud Ngāpuhi and, you know, unapologetic about that. And I don't know if you've seen any of my posts. I'm always like, you know, pro Ngāpuhi. Probably more so than my cousins up home because I'm not there, you know. When you're in the kāinga, you don't have to jump up and down and say, oh, look at me, I'm a Ngāpuhi. But when you live away from home, there's a sense of disconnect and so I've always been, you know, I've never lived in my tūranga waiwai long enough to sort of say, like, you know, I am mahi ka of that area. And that sense of disconnection makes me even more proud of my roots, proud of my whakapapa that, you know, my ancestral bloodlines are from the Hokianga. So, yeah. Yeah, did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And we mentioned there, you know, our whānau that do live overseas now. And so one of the big questions that I get, of course, particularly because there's a huge population of Māori in Australia, do you have to get moko in New Zealand? You know, do people have to come home for this?
Nah, you know, like we've got, you know, I mentioned too, just briefly.
Yep.
Over there, we've got a number of good, you know, great tā moko artists that are working and living in different parts of Australia. You know, our people can, you know, be serviced anywhere they are in the world. You know, I mean, like I say, I've tattooed half of Holland, but in that time that I spent over there going back and forth, you know, I'd constantly run into Māori. So we're everywhere. You know, so, and that's a luxury, you know, that shows the fruitfulness of where this kaupapa has come from, you know, where there were a handful of us. Now we're in the thousands, you know, and we can get work. But, you know, and, you know, the downside of the business that it's so accessible to people taking up a machine and doing moko and calling it moko is that you also have a lot of cowboys.
Yep.
And fly-by-nighters, and they just take your money and they give you some fucking Kōreros and you know, you can't even get into the Koru Club Lounge at in New Zealand.
Right.
So, and you think, well, hey, no, I got my tattoo from the Kazi, but nah.
Yeah.
So you got to do your homework, and that's what you got to do. You know, you got to do your rangaho, find out which artists that you connect with. Like I think, you know, like the luxury of having so many kaitai out there now is like, I get to tattoo the people that want to get tattooed by me rather than having to take on people that I might not want to connect with, you know?
Right.
99.9% of my clients are from the north. And that's more than likely because I jump up and down. And, hey, look at me, I'm Ngāpuhi. So they're like, oh, well, let's go to that fella. You know, but yeah.
Yeah, and hand in hand with that question too is, do you have to get moko at the marae as well?
You can get moko anywhere. Honestly, like in the early days, I've tattooed, next to a wharepaku. I've tattooed in the bush. I've tattooed out of somebody's, on a car battery, coming out of their boot.
Right.
It's not about where you get done or how you get done. It's why you're getting done.
Right.
Make sure it's real, and not just like, oh, I'm excited, I'm going to get tattooed.
Right.
That's just, you're going to run into problems there. Like, make sure you're doing it for the right, like if the reason is right, it doesn't matter where it is, man. Like, it doesn't matter who's there either. You don't need all the iwi and stuff like that. I tend to work alone. I don't do a lot of moko papa anymore. I've been part of just about every kind of scenario of moko you can imagine over the years. And out of that, I've gained the experience that I prefer to work this way, that I can give my clients the very best that I can. Because as I said earlier on, I still see myself as a student.
Right.
I get a little bit bloody embarrassed when people kind of like say things, because I still see myself as a student, and they ignore me for being this and that, but I'm like, imposter syndrome. That's just being honest, And I think when I can control the environment, then I can give my people the very best that I can. I will never, ever say that I've got all the answers. I haven't. Clearly I haven't. But there's no reason why you should stop what you're doing. And if you're constantly pushing and developing and, that's the main thing. Just carry on doing what you're doing. If you're no good, nobody will call. Nobody will.
And I think from my perspective too, I think that sort of mindset is testament to your status as a legend, if you want to, if we use that word, because you admit that you're always learning. We see people who call themselves these so-called masters, and that's where they're educated. They think they've got it. They've got the end-all, be-all knowledge now. I think that mindset of always learning more is probably testament to your status as an artist.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, you get a little bit of a rock star kind of thing going on, people, people really, roll out the carpet for the old guitar and
right.
You would know what that's like being in the band, people really roll it out for you, and there's a sense of like, holy shit, I just thought I'm like you fellas.
Right.
I didn't expect all of this. I just thought I'd come home or go to the marae and, hey, well, let's get on with it. But no, it's not like that. So in order for my head to be in the right place, I need to structure the environment. And I'm just talking about me personally. Somebody else, completely different. They love that sort of stuff. Kei te pai, mahia. But for me, I know I can do my very best when I'm in my own bubble. And those who have chosen to take up that opportunity, it's been going pretty well. I gotta say, it's been going pretty well. So I must be doing something right.
Yeah, and I think too that also speaks hugely to the power of moko for people. The fact that these moments are so significant for people that they, hold you guys up to these pedestals that even from your perspective, you go, I'm just me, but that moment is just so significant for so many people that the person doing it is just as significant.
Yeah. And it's not to say that, it really is an honor, if I die today, I would die. It would take the coroner a week to wrench the smile from my face.
Right.
Because I know that what we started is it's safe. It's never, ever going to go back. So it is a real honor to be doing this. And I never, ever take that for granted. What I try to do is just keep the ego in check.
Right.
And when people come here, I know that I can be myself. I have a particular way that I communicate. I look a certain way, and I'm comfortable in this space to be able to sort of be honest about, if you come here, there's going to be a few fucks and a few this and a few that. And what you see is what you get.
Mm.
And I can do that here because I can control the environment. It's my space. And if you don't like it, don't come. Don't book in. Go somewhere else where if you're looking for that, you know, that hohonu kind of whatever it is you're looking for, there's kaitari out there that can do that. But what you'll get here is a real trip.
Right.
And not to take away, I'm not trying to be whakahihi about any of the kaitari out there. Anyone who's got the balls to do this type of mahi, I respect.
Yeah, awesome. Backtracking a bit to the question where we talked about this idea of, you know, being part Māori, or people who come to me asking all these questions as maybe they're reconnecting or they're just starting, is of course we know for Māori a huge part of our people and our tikanga is the practice of whakapapa, or the knowledge of whakapapa. And I get lots of questions from people wondering if they don't know their whakapapa, can they still get moko? Do they need to go out and get it first before approaching you the artist? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I'm always in the hope, like, if I moko somebody who doesn't know their whakapapa, that the moko is somewhat of a contract that will always be their reminder to investigate more about who they are, where they come from. The other thing about when you receive moko is that our community, our society, Māori are going to ask questions. Oh, no hea koe, ko wai koe. He ha te whakamara mo tēnā moko. And you know, you'll be put into a position where you have to, in some cases, reply. Yes. And it always depends on how that conversation starts. I mean, if someone's being sarcastic and being a smartass about it, right, that you don't have to tell them anything, but there are going to be occasions where other people will want to know about it. And so I always see moko as a stepping stone for those who don't know a lot about their taha Māori, as a stepping stone and a contract, to encourage them, to motivate them, to inspire them, to be proud of who they are. And not only that, but to know who they are and where they come from. Absolutely.
And now at the beginning of the conversation, you know, you mentioned growing up in an era where the idea was moko was only for chiefs. And it is a statement that I still get time and time again from people, you know, is, oh, you don't look like a chief, or I don't know what a chief in 2024 is supposed to look like, but, you know, these sorts of things. In your opinion, is moko only for chiefs?
It's, moko is, you know, it comes with responsibilities. It's for those who have made a conscious decision in their lives to hold the fort. You know, one of the things that moko encapsulates is te whare o tū, is the house of tūmatauenga. They are markings that represent our warrior lines, you know, and I think that, you know, since the 70s at least, moko has become a powerful political tool to say, you know, he Māori aha. Yep. I just did a fair skin Māori. I'm pretty fair skinned too. You are too. You know, but I just did a fair skin Māori the other day, and I ran into him just last week, and he was saying, "Oh man, like, you know, just like so many Māori have come up and said, man, that's beautiful, and te mea, you know." And he said he didn't expect that because he's grown up, you know, people not Māori, other Māori not knowing that he's Māori because he's so white. And, you know, he said to me, like, well, you know, since I've had this and it's only been like, you know, a month or so, it's completely like, you know, made me feel a part of something that I felt I'd lost, you know? And, you know, and him telling me that, I was like, wow, you know, like, I mean, you know, it's working, you know, the map working. It's pono, it's tika. It's opening up conversations with people who see it, like, hey, oh man, that's, just even saying comments like, wow, that's really, really beautiful,
Yeah.
You can start a conversation with a stranger, be they Māori or be they Pākehā or Tauki or whoever. It enables you to have conversations and open up that, open up that side that probably, people just look at you and think, oh, just another Pākehā.
Yeah. It's so true because, I was fortunate enough to have grown up, surrounded by Māoridom. So I in myself was confident in the area. But one thing I noticed, my parents were apprehensive about when I went to go get it done, or, brought up the question to them, like, I'm thinking about, going through this process. They had these sort of reservations of like, oh, will particularly Māori, maybe treat you poorly because of your color, color of my skin and things like that. And what was instantly noticeable to me was how my life and interaction with Māori out in public changed positively tenfold. It is like you said before, it can be a political statement just to say I am Māori, and so now you're instantly recognizable by Māori, and to be fair, as someone who travels the world, by people all over the world. People going, oh wow, I've never seen those in real life, that's pretty cool, you from New Zealand, and are you Māori and this and that, and it's like an instant identifier. And for me, other than the odd thing online, the experience has been completely positive. So
and I think some Māori, not all Māori, thankfully, can be a little harsh on our own, and, even some, if I look at my own career as an artist and, going to Holland and the United States, and tattooing white people, I've had my fair share of slack there and sell out, bloody kupapa and, for the money and all that sort of crap. We all have our reasons for doing things, man, and, people will always have their opinions, and half the time they're not even worth worrying about. Just, if you know that you're doing it for the right reasons, that, my grandmother always used to say, we would talk about the reo, and she said, it's not, it's not whether or not you know the reo, it's the intent of what you're trying to say or do that matters most of all, and that will last longer than what comes out of your mouth. And it's true. Yeah. So, having the opportunity to receive moko and educate others will last a hell of a lot longer than these pricks that just mouth off and waste air.
Yeah. And so this is probably the most popular question that comes from non-Māori, and it normally follows when they find out that particularly the moko kanohi is or can be gender specific. We have kauai for women and mataora, matakiore, et cetera, for men. Lots of people, like I said, particularly internationally, are very curious what happens then if people are transgender, non-binary, all this thing. Have you had much experience with that in your field?
No, but I've always, I've had that question asked of me, and again, I'm coming from I have to look at my own life in the time that I was born, and this whole simulation, colonization kind of a thing, So much of our culture has been denied over all these centuries, and so I'm, for me, if somebody chooses or feels that they're different and they're walking a different path from everybody else, I'll make that judgment on I'll treat them exactly the same way as I would anybody else.
Yep.
I'm asking them the same questions. I want to know that their consciousness and their awareness is the same as anybody else. I want to know that they have support. I want to know that they'll have a wraparound system if things go wrong. I want to know that they're going to be protected. I want to know that they can stand on their own and protect it. You know, I want to know all those questions. And if they fail it, then they're not going to get it. Not from me.
Yeah.
And that's across the board. I don't care if you're black, white, or green, or purple, or whatever color you want to relate to. If I get an inkling that things are not right, then it ain't happening.
Yeah, that's a great answer too. That is a great answer. This is one of my favorite questions personally, because it just gives me sort of an insight and gives the viewers an insight, you know, into what made, in this case, you know, and your style too. But who are your favorite moko artists and inspirations that you've had throughout your moko journey?
Oh, you know, like, you know, off the bat, I got to say my kids. You know, because all my kids are involved in the arts, mainly moko. You know, my students have become better than me. You know, they're my inspirations. You know, because they're the ones that I spent most time with. And you know, with regards to other kaita, I think, you know, I look at Hohua, you know, Hohua Mohi, who was also, you know, I had the privilege of being a part of his journey in the early days and getting him started. Looking at, you know, the type of things where he's taken moko, you know, he's him and Boboy and all their ropu have really taken moko ora to another level by opening up opportunity for moko wānanga. You know, and being consistent with that, you know, that's really inspiring and really motivating to, like, wow, look at that, you know. The revival down the coast, you know, with Derek and Mark, what they've done, you know, like, you know, there's nowhere you can go up the coast without seeing moko kanohi.
Yeah.
In the early days, Tame was a huge influence on us, you know, even though he wasn't a kaita,
right,
man, he was at every single moko papa, moko wānanga, moko, if it had moko on it, Tame was there.
Right.
Know? It was hearty, you know, like, oh, you want a moko kanohi, get your nose done, you know, like, I mean, he didn't give a rat's ass.
Right.
And, you know, if it wasn't for people like that, that, you know, I was around, you know, it may have gone in another direction. You know, we needed those people to give us, you know, guidance and encouragement. And so, yeah, you know, of course, you know, Ani Karo, you know, she's always been a, you know, like you know, she's my niece, you know.
Right.
I'm really proud of what she's done in Te Tai Tokiro, Raniera McGrath, in Kaitaia, you know, the mahis that, you know, that these guys are doing up in the north. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of them, you know. Really proud of a lot of our kaita that, you know, continue to just, like, stay in it and hold that ground and hold that space, hold that opportunity for our people to be who they need to be, you know. Like, I mean, never mind what anybody else thinks about us. You know, we're happy with who we are, and we're confident about ourselves, and we're pro-Māori, and we're kaupapa driven. You know, that's all that matters. And our kaita, you know, we get to showcase our people. We get, you know, through moko, we get to celebrate who we are as a people. Absolutely. It's another way. It's like waiata. It's like matatini, you know. It's like what you fellas do, you know. You take your Māori-ness around the world and you share it with people, and people vibe from it, man. Like you know, you can't imagine. We have such a huge impact. It's such a positive thing to offer the rest of the world. And we as Māori need to believe in that positivity too. And I believe we are in our own ways. You just have to look at the latest situation at Tūranga Waiwai and Waitangi and, you know, artists like Hori up in Otaki, being proactive, you know, and like I said, moko is really a holistic approach to our well-being of who we are as Māori people. And it's going to take all of us to just keep pushing and not worry about what old Tom thinks.
Yeah.
You know, I want us to get to a point of tino rangatiratanga mana motu hake where we don't need their opinions, where we can rely on each other and support one another truthfully, not just talk kotahitanga, talk aroha, but actually, you know, live it. And I think moko is a great way we can do that because it unifies us without words, without bullshit. You know, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. That's a really awesome answer. So one of the questions that I've been specifically looking forward to asking you, because for me personally, the way I know your mahi is through Pūhoro. You know, I would say Pūhoro is absolutely where, and the people that I know that have your mahi, it's all Pūhoro. And one of the questions I get flicked all the time from our wahine is Pūhoro only for men? You know, I get lots of women ask me like that Pūhoro is only for men. Yeah, is that real? You know,
I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
No, Pūhoro has become my thing. You know, I think it's always been my thing. I think, you know, like we all have something that's special, you know, and once we identify it and we start tuning in on it, you realize like, yeah, man, like two, for example, to keep using him as an example. Also Boboy, you know, their kanohi work is just unbelievable. The mahi that Ani Karo and my daughter and Tyler Jade, you know, wahine, their mahi kanohi is just amazing. You know, and I look at it and I think, yeah, you know, you found your thing, man. And you know, you found your lane. And for me, it's always been Pūhoro. I think I've always structured my trajectory towards Pūhoro.
Right.
I've been just fascinated by it. I've done the kanohi thing. I no longer do kanohi. I just can't see the detail that needs to be done there. And there are far more better kaitari out there doing fantastic mahi, and I just leave it to them. But Pūhoro for me, I think I've still got some gas in the tank to offer that kaupapa. And since I've been down into Tauihu, I've dug a little deeper into the whole kind of process side of it, the holistical, you know, parts to forming a process where I think that, you know, we can just take it to another level. And, well, yeah, I mean, again, the results speak for itself. I mean, the people that I've done and the process that I've used to apply that, it's 10 times better than what was happening up in Tāmaki. And Tāmaki, for me, was as much as, you know, that was my home and I grew up there. I started realizing that, like, there was, when it came to doing Pūhoro, there was too much noise, too much this, too much that. And it was a little, you know, I had a little bit of a The Last Samurai Tom Cruise moment, epiphany, you know, when he's with the samurai and the young fella comes over and says, too much this, too much that, block it out. And that was kind of what happened for me in Auckland. And after my accident, it really nailed home the tohu, like, oh man, I've got to change something. Something's got to change. Otherwise, I'm going to fucking die. And I almost did. So I had a second chance, you know, and with that second chance, we ended up down into Tauihu, and just some of the changes in the designs and stuff like that. Obviously, you know, really digging hard into the northern styles, and having the trust from the boys, predominantly men that I work with, have come through, and all of them have just bent the bar, recreated the bar. Some of them have recreated the bar. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you know, they, you know, to do the impossible, it's only impossible till some crazy motherfucker comes along and busts it. You know,
that's right.
You know, that's a whakatauki that CT Fletcher uses. He's a PT trainer,
Yeah.
from the, you know, from the hood.
Yeah.
Someone I really look up to as well, you know, like just a constant sort of, you know, role model that just keeps pushing. And, you know, I liken myself to that kind of āhua too, you know, like it's not sometimes not pretty, but it's the job done. And, you know, the main thing of this kaupapa that we have here is manakitanga. It's based on manakitanga. It isn't even about the moko, you know. And you know, people always want to kind of know that, well, how do you cover so much skin in so short a time, and how do you know, where do you get the designs from and stuff like that, you know? Like there's some kind of secret to it. There's no secret to it. It's all it is making sure that like you're in the right frame mind, you know. It's and your crew is on, your recipient, your kaiwhiwhi is on, your home life is on, the dog is taken care of, the kids are taken care of, everything. The support, because the boys, when they come down here, they come on their own, so no whānau at all. Right. I pick them up from the airport, mahi, finish them, drop them off. Koe nā te kaupapa. So, you know, so they're separated. So, you know, that their whānau have to be down with it as well to allow them to come down and receive the work, you know, and they stay with us in the studio. It's 24/7, the wānanga. You know, creating a safe space where we can be men and talk like men, you know, and feel safe. Build our tahata now, because a lot of our men, they come with all sorts of things, not just trauma, but stress, anxiety, everything. And for me, moko and the process of Pūhoro allows them to be able to separate all these things, to rebuild themselves, and when you go back, you can approach them with a different attitude and maybe tick a few of those things off. As I said to you earlier on, moko is not the be-all and end-all. It's just a tool.
Yep.
And it will lay dormant in your skin if you do nothing with it. It's a tattoo.
Yeah.
But if you activate it and you are conscious of it, it will speak to you on so many levels. It's not funny.
Yeah.
It will follow you. It's faithful. It will never let you down, ever.
And yeah, and so I get lots of messages then from our Maori women, you know, regarding Pūhoro, because like you said, you know, lots of the time it's men, and they have this idea that it's only for men. Is that true for Pūhoro?
No, not traditionally either.
Right.
I know in the north, our women had moko, and they were just as fully mokoed as our men. And, I know this because of our waiata, our karakia, and verbal information that I've picked up over the years from certain family members from the north. Our women fought on the front lines, and when you fight on the front lines and you're a part of that tūtaua, everything that is offered to the men are offered to the women. In fact, even our rangatahi fought on the front lines. They had their roles to play as well. Everybody was involved. When these big tauas went around the motu, it wasn't just the taua themselves. They took their families with them, the women, the children, the dogs, the cats, everything. Right. And someone had to feed them. Yeah. You know, they didn't just go around like Superman and, you know, this fantasy that we rode canoes on our own and all that sort of crap. Bullshit. We took our families with us. And you know, this is just all like crap that people want us to believe that, you know, we're these superhuman beings that did all these things. No, man. We're a lot more real than that.
Yeah.
We took our women into battle because they wanted to be there. They wanted to be a part of that, you know, whatever, their kaupapa, their men. They wanted to live and die with their men.
Yeah.
And they weren't sort of huddled in some room anywhere or anything like that, like you see on the movies.
Right.
No, hell no. And they earned the right to wear, just like the men did, earned the right to wear moko. In the last couple of years, I've done 2 wahine that have stepped up. Both of them are from here. They have northern links, which was also an advantage. And so I've done 2 in the last 2 years. The first of our Pūhoro that we did this year was a wahine, which was just a couple of months of January. I just finished doing another one last week. My other whāngai son, Hirini Kātini, ngō Ngāti Pikiao, he was my tauira for 16 years, grew up with my kids. I got him when he was 16 years old, 15 maybe. And, you know, he's a part of our family. He's got a studio, the Native Studios up in Oneonga. And he's got all wahine tauira. Plus, they're very, very active in doing wahine Pūhoro. I know other kaitaha out there that are doing wahine Pūhoro. You know, so it's starting to activate.
Nice.
Our wahine are starting to come on board. They're not just talking about it anymore. They're actually stepping up, and it's great to see. And, you know, I know Anikaro is doing a lot of wahine Pūhoro, or has done a lot of wahine Pūhoro. So, you know, they're getting there. You know, even kanohi, if you look at the Renaissance back in the 90s, back then was all small stuff, armbands, mana bands. I don't know if you remember that terminology, mana bands and stuff. There was a lot of that sort of stuff. It took a long time before people actually started like, oh yeah, I'm going to get my kaki done. I'm going to get a chest, the whole back. Back then we were doing Pūhoro in stages. So it took a long time. Like I'm talking years after the initial beginnings for those ngaru to build themselves up to now we know, like, wow, there's another Pūhoro. You know, there's, oh, look at that whittle. There's that poeti's got like, Matatini's got 15 bloody kaita, kai Pūhoro on stage, you know. There's wahine kanohi everywhere now. It's becoming normalized now, male kanohi everywhere. So it's becoming normalized, but that wave took a long time, and I believe wahine Pūhoro needs to take its time and build that momentum to it becoming something that's normalized again too. The thing that we have to be careful about is with different, you know, like we talked about, you know, our trans takatapuhi communities and non-Māori, and now wahine taking on Pūhoro, all these types of things. And these are all kind of sort of like new things that we have to navigate, you know, as artists. But also one of the things that I'm actively trying to do is give our wahine their own Pūhoro. And if we look at our whanaungas, te moana nui akiwa, te tangata hāmoa, you'll see a great example of a culture that never stopped their tatau. And so you'll see the traditional pea. And right alongside of that is the malu. And very, very different in āhua. And so, you know, part of my edification is investigating and pushing towards our wahine having their own distinctive Pūhoro. And a lot of that's got to do in my case, with formatting. It's all in the formatting and why those designs are looking the way that they are. Trying to, you know, just like we have different tribal styles of moko, we need to start working on, as kaita, our more so our tribal designs, and so there's a difference between one and the other. If you look at te reo, for example, Te mito o te reo is very, very prominent now. In the 70s, it wasn't. Kei te pē ea koe, man, that was it.
Right.
You know, there was no tribal dialect in Auckland that I knew of. It was all chucked in, if you could say, kia ora.
Right.
You're on your way. So with moko, the horizon is that we need to work on te mito o te moko, and the different tribal differences and styles. And so when we come to apply them on our transgender, our non-Māori, our rangatahi, our elderly, our rangatiras, you know, all these different things, there are slight changes in terms of āhuatanga, so that, you know, it's just not a mismatch of korus and pūhoros and rangopares, te mea, like it has been.
You're right.
In saying that, this is a necessary thing that has to happen in moko, that it has to go through this kind of like chaos kind of bit. If you look at the separation of rangi and papa, for example, there's all chaos inside there when they separated their parents, scraps, everything going on. You know, there's vying for space and rounds, different rounds, and were challenged and so forth. And as the further and further they separated rangi and papa, it became clear which atua would control different environments.
Yes.
And so if I look at moko today, it's a little bit like that.
Right.
We're all fucking, you know, tapping on one another's styles and mixing this and mixing that. There's shading here, there's colors here, there's fucking power shell. I don't know who the fuck comes from powers, but there's a lot of power shell bloody tattoos out there these days, or moko or whatever. But that's okay. That's fine. That's not the end of the development or the evolution of moko. That's just the stepping stones. And each artist needs to find their own reasoning why they do that type of style. And hopefully that will become embedded in that tribal style. And history will dictate the success of that. But if we get to see that in our lifetime, I don't think so.
Right.
You know, we're already like 40 years deep in the modern Renaissance. It's going to take a shitload of time before we actually really start looking at moko and going, oh yeah, no tū,
right,
no ta, you know, no ngāpuhi, off the bat.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been doing as an artist since I've been down here and I've had time to do it is actively keep pushing the northern styles and trying to, you know, go back to the books really and strip away the bullshit and just get it right back down to that real raw kind of style of the essence of that style of that particular area. And there's not much in the north. Right. If I'm honest, there's nothing. We got hit real hard with colonization and religion, and we suffer the effects of that to this very day. And so in terms of whakairo, even whakairo and moko, you know, it's very thin on the ice. So what I'm studying at the moment is old carvings and anything old that I can get my hands on, you know. You know, and some of these images I've seen all my life through my carving career. But I revisit them all the time because if you think that you look at it once and you've got it, then, you know, you're mistaken, because you've got to keep looking back, and you're always going to find something, a little thing. It's not necessarily the big thing. It's the small details. It's what somebody says to you in a kōrero, or you hear it in a karakia. Well, what the fuck is that? What is that? Who said that? You know, well, what does that mean? And you start asking a question about it, and then this whole kōrero comes out. It's like, holy shit, you know? And then you incorporate that and you put that into your work, and slowly we start to put back the jigsaw puzzle. And you know, and some of it we have to make up, you know? We just have to make up because it's that, you know, it's that damaged. Yeah. And, you know, it's up to the artist. It's not up to You know, it's not up to our kaumātua and queer. They're doing their thing.
Right.
What roles our whānau have is to support our artists.
Mm.
I know there's been a lot of our artists out there that have done things and people are like, jingers, you know. It's so easy to jump on your pedestal and start slinging shit. But you don't pay their bills. You don't look after their kids.
Mm.
You're not even a fucking tattooist.
Yeah.
So shut the fuck up and stay in your lane, I say. You know, and some people might think, oh, shit, that's a bit harsh, cuzzy. But it's the truth.
Mm.
And nothing wrong with it. And don't get hurt by it. Just stay in your lane, man. Back your fucking artist up.
Yeah.
Show them some love. We talk about it all the time. And as soon as somebody says something negative, everybody gets on top of it.
Yeah.
And you know, we've got an artist who's got like anxiety problems, who's depressed, who doesn't want to do the mahi anymore, and we've lost another one.
You know, and you see it all the time because, you know, for example, I did an interview with Turu Makina, and, you know, another one that's probably up there, you know, with people like yourself. And I post a video, you know, and people in the comments disagreeing, which is fine, you know, but like some people really disagree. And then I'm like, but, you know, sure, you're entitled to your opinion, but how can your opinion at all regarding moko surpass the opinion of somebody like Tu, you know, who has been doing moko and actively revitalizing moko for so many years for Māori, you know? And lots of Māori, like, you're right, they'll jump in there and they say whatever they want to say, and it's not even coming from a place of education even necessarily, or knowledge, you know? They're just whatever they're thinking, and then you go, what are you talking about? Like, if there's anybody to listen to, these are the people, which is why I do this series, is because if you want to listen to anybody about moko, at very least it needs to be the artists, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're not perfect. You know, we'll make mistakes, you know, I'll tattoo the odd bloody Pākehā, you know, and do a few things and stuff, like do some silly things, but, you know, ask before you, like, just shoot off your mouth. And of course, with social media these days, you can be a keyboard warrior and you're in your own little bubble and so, you know, you can be quite staunch about what you say, but it has no relevance. The other thing about that, though, I might add, is we have to be conscious of where we disperse our energy. You know, we can look at a negative comment, and it kind of like it might hurt. I think it hurts more the ego than it is the sense of making sense of what it is, what they're talking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so we can waste all our time. For example, I'll give you another example. Like, there's always been this idea that, you know, like white people over in Europe and America tattooing Polynesian design should stop. And there's quite a huge emphasis on it. But clearly the work that they're doing is substandard. If anything is kirituhi, it's that.
Right.
You know, if you want to downplay moko, it's that. So let's worry about our own fucking backyard and get our artists up to skill, and never mind worrying about those fellas, because that's always going to be substandard work. We know that.
That's right.
You know, so let's stop wasting time about trying to tell them what to do. Let them go. They're not affecting what we do. They have no impact on what we do culturally, in my opinion. So let's not waste our energy. And it's the same thing with negative comments, you know, like there's been a few things said, you know, to me and stuff like that. What calms my energy is my wife, you know, my kids. They tell me, you know, they give me the comments I want to hear. Yeah. And that to me, you know, that can lighten up my day, you know. Yeah. And tomorrow I'll get up and I'll be into it again. You know? And none of that shit matters. And so we have to protect ourselves by looking after our own hauora, our own wairua, our own mana, you know. We can't rely on other people to make us mawiwi and second guess what we're doing, you know. because we're out there. There are no boundaries where we are. For the rest of our whānau, there is, you know, they live within boundaries. 8 o'clock, start work. 5 o'clock, finish. You know, pick the kids up, do the shopping, clean the house, te mea.
Yep.
For artists, there are no boundaries. We're out there in space, and we're trying to fit a broken jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
And we're not always going to get the right piece to fit in the right place.
Yeah. You know, and I think that's a really good point that you bring up about, you know, these artists around the world and not needing to focus on that kind of thing, because you know, I get asked all the time, oh, too, so-and-so's doing this over there, or, you know, what do you think? What are your thoughts? And I go, you will most likely never convince people who have no interest in being respectful to all of a sudden be respectful. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure you get the odd person who will willing to change. But most of those people that are in that position, they're never going to be that person to change. So you might as well spend the energy, like you said, on working on our own. For me, it's about teaching those who want to be respectful how to be respectful. And, you know, we can focus that in here. Those artists that want to do Polynesian markings or whatever they want to do, they're never going to change. So we might as well focus on those who want to change and want to be good, and, you know, not worry about that so much.
You know, I when we first started, we were working a lot with international artists, and personally, on a personal basis, they're great people. But, you know, we came in at a time where they had been exposed to, like, you know, Māori actually doing moko that they've been doing for a long time terribly.
Right.
And so, you know, as much as we were saying to them back then, you know, like, hey, you know, you guys should really check this, you know, and maybe have another think about it, you know, because this is a lot more than just ink and skin. And some of the ones that actually had you know, self-respect actually stopped. But you're never ever going to wipe it out. There's always going to be another one. You know, for every one you stop, there's going to be 10 that take it up.
Yeah.
The best thing we can do is to be as best as we can.
Yes. And
as I said, you know, when we travel, regardless if it's moko or waiata or movies or anything that's projecting our culture, we have a huge impact, massive. And I'm not talking about numbers, man. Sometimes, you know, kua hauanake, you know, and we just have this huge impact over there. And so we, you know, we have to know our own strengths, you know, our own superpower, keep that to ourselves, you know. And when we go out, you know, we're not just going out on our own. We're taking all our culture with us. We're taking all our iwis with us, you know. I'm not just taking Ngāpuhi, I'm taking everyone. And you guys must feel the same thing when you go up around the world as well, that you represent Māori dim, not iwi alone.
Yep.
And you know, we can affect.
Yes.
But we have to jump up and down all the time and say, don't do that, don't do that. We just got to make sure that we're doing our best.
Yeah, awesome. And kind of in the same vein, and this is actually my last question, and I was saving it to the end because I was particularly excited to ask you this question, given we covered this a little bit at the beginning, so you might repeat a little bit about your work, you know, out there in media fields, you know. So one of my passions is film and video games, and people always ask me, you know, is this in this movie or is in this game appropriate, you know, is it disrespectful, blah blah blah, you know. And always the word that follows that, and we mentioned it before, is cultural appropriation. And so as someone who's you worked on, like people have mentioned, you know, that you worked on the Enders game, which is probably a very notable example of moko Māori representation in big Hollywood film. But so for you then, who has pretty solid experience in this field, when it comes to moko / Māori representation in pop culture and media, you know, where is that line between appreciation and appropriation, and what has been your experience with that?
Oh, well, most of the time it's, you know, like those who have reached out, I've got nothing but respect for them, you know, because they want to know.
Yes.
And they want you to show them. And is this right? And 9 times out of 10, no, they're not. They're so far off the mark, it's not even funny.
Right.
But that's not their fault.
No.
And the fact that they've reached out tells me that if you go to the right person, you want to do a good job at this.
Yes.
So if I just talk about Ender's Game, for example, the production crew reached out and they said, well, we're doing this project, and one of the characters has got a full face moko, and we would be interested in what firstly you think, and secondly, could we do it, and and then thirdly, would you be a part of it? And so just getting back to my support system that I've built around myself, I knew that this was going to be quite a big kind of Hollywood deal type movie.
Yep.
So I knew that the images would be scanned around the planet.
Yep.
And there was whispers as to who the actor would be that would carry the moko.
Right.
And that wasn't confirmed at that stage. And so I reached out to my networks, and one of the guys that I spoke to was my bro, old Cliff Curtis.
Oh yeah.
And who's done like thousands of these types of things where he's played other cultural icons and
right.
Identities, and and I thought, well, he's the best man to talk about it. And so I rang him up and I said to him, hey, bro, I got this thing and blah, blah. Oh, I wasn't even finished the conversation. He was like, do it.
Right.
Do it. If anyone's going to do it, it's got to be you.
Yep.
I was like, well, okay, all right then, So once I had that green light and that support from him, I touched base with the production company, and they said, look, man, it's going to be shot in New Orleans at the NASA space station thing there.
Right.
And, we'll fly over and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oof, sure, man. Oh, I ain't coming on my own, so I need 2 tickets. Oh, it's not in the budget. Oh, right. See you later. Hung the phone up. 2 days later, they rang me up again and they said, well, we found the budget. And so they flew me and my wife over. And, in terms of manakitanga and their approach to being respectful about, wanting to do a good job with this thing, they just treated us like kings.
Right.
And, we had our own driver and stuff like that. These are all the nice things that come with doing these things if we are actively in control of, the kaupapa. Had a meeting with design people over there and the director. The director was very adamant about getting it right, and they showed me their final draft, which was taken off of Moko Mokai.
Right.
And so what we did was, and how we got to the final design was that I first asked the director, what is it that you want in the kanohi? What is it? And he said, well, for him, firstly, the facial markings of the Māori just ooze the warrior essence.
Right.
And in the film, it's about, these aliens kind of taking over mankind. And they felt like if there was any warrior race on the face of the planet that, represented that, was Māori and the markings that they wore on their face.
Right.
So I was like, well, cool. All right. But you can't use these traditional ones, especially not this one that comes off a death mask.
Right.
And more than likely was sold for a blanket.
Yeah.
Or a fucking nail. And so I talked to him about how moko is it's constantly in evolution. The markings that traditionally we know that our tupunas wore were markings that they carried back in that time. Mm-hmm. The markings that Māori wear today is slightly different. Right. Although it looks the same, it's slightly different because we're different people. We live in a different society. We have a different approach to it. Te mea. this movie is set in the future. We're fighting aliens, you know.
Yes.
And the aliens are a big part of our society because we are just, you know, possessed with trying to save the planet. So everything is aliens.
Right.
And therefore, the markings may reflect the environment to which we live in the future.
Right.
Which means that the moko will have some element of the alien in it.
Right.
Because to congest or to take in or to eat the soul of your enemy is to give you power. And the taking of heads was to take the mana of that person, literally the life force of that person, because you hold it in the markings on his face or her face. So I came up with this idea that it has traditional elements in it, but actually it looks like the claws and the what is the word? Anatomy,
anatomy,
the body shape of the aliens we were fighting.
Right.
So the teeth, everything like that is actually like the legs and the arms of the aliens that we were fighting.
Right.
And lower down on the face, it started to look a little bit more sort of traditional.
Right.
But you didn't really get to see the full scope of the moko in the movie. And that's typical of movie making.
Yeah, yeah.
But the tail of the tifana and the body of the tifana actually went right back over the actor's head.
Right.
And so, and with that modern kind of futuristic kind of design, combined with a more traditional, as we came down through Kauairunga,
yep,
it married up really nice.
Yeah.
And that, it took a little bit over a week to come up with the final draft that the director was happy with, and more importantly, I was happy for that design to be used. Yeah, but he gave me that freedom.
Yeah, which is awesome.
You know? Yeah, and he went based on the information that I shared with him.
Yeah,
you know, and so it was definitely a collab. I mean, he had the final word, and I had all the technicians. Like, I mean, these guys were at the cutting edge of, you know, I could rattle off all the movies, the Transformers and the Pirates of the Caribbean, all these things. They designed all of that stuff.
Right.
The lead alien character guy, I was working with him, and he's still a good friend of mine, Telly. And he's designed all the aliens for Thor and everything.
Right.
You know, I mean, man is a tohunga.
Yeah.
Together, him and I, we made up, because I'm still pencil. When I turned up with my pencil and paper, everybody was like, fuck, where's this guy been? What? Is he asking for a rubber or an eraser? You know, for a what? For a what? But I'm going to draw my, you know, I'm going to draw my, fuck, I want some paper too, you know. Like, you need paper, or, you know, you want to print something out? You know, I want to fucking draw, you know, like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? You know, Jesus Christ. So I started feeling very like, and nobody talked in the room.
Right.
And this is fucking weird. There's like 20 of us in the room, no one talking.
Right.
But they had their headphones on and they were talking through their computers, and it took me at least half the week to figure that out. And so me and Tully, we came up with a 3D kind of print of the actor, and we were moving the thing around, and he was moving the designs around to sort of like really fit it in, and, you know, to make it look like a part of him, and it wasn't working. It wasn't working, all the technology. And so we were getting down to the wire, and I said, man, I'm gonna go old school on this, man. Let's get a plaster mold made of his face.
Right.
And he said, well, we haven't done that for like 600 years, but yeah, okay, we'll do it. So they got the guys up from where they make all the props and stuff like that, took a mold of his face and everything. They gave it to me within 30 minutes. We had the finished product. Right. So it was done, ready to go. So they flew this Flash guy up from LA to New Orleans. He's the the guy that does all the tattoos, scars and stuff, you know, makes all of those things out of silicon.
Yep.
He came up, made the mold. We had a test run and then applied it. And man, I'll tell you, man, I don't think the movie really picked up on it because it was amazing. Like when I saw it in real life on the guy, man, it was like far out. That's badass Moko, man.
Yeah.
The guy didn't want to take it off. Yeah, you know, man, I'm going home with this.
Yeah, I mean, from the movie and that, you know, it looks incredible, but I can only imagine. You're right. It doesn't you know, show it in full glory. But that's super cool, you know, because I think 2 said he'd done a little bit, but nothing to the scale that you'd done. So it was really, really awesome to, you know, see what that process is like. And because that is a style of question that I get all the time, you know, because of my passion for video games and film. So that was really awesome. But that's all my questions for today, bro. A tēnei te mihi nui ki a koe mō tō kōrero, mō tō whakaro I te rānei. I thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and have a kōrero with me today. It was just super awesome to hear your really just unapologetic, you know, views on things, which is really cool. Just really just straightforward and just really raw. So that was super cool. Just to wrap this up, advice for Māori who are thinking about getting moko.
Mahia. Just mahia, you know, like get on with it and we'll deal with whatever comes after it, you know. Don't waste good time, you know. You got one chance. Let's make it the best that we can and just keep being Māori, you know, keep being proud of who we are, you know, like don't lose focus on them. Don't worry about what the government's doing, you know, like let's just be us and truly embrace one another and don't pretend.